Welcome to another episode of Over the Should podcast. I am so excited for you to meet today's guest. After a decade as a corporate strategy executive, Meghan Gifford created Frequency. This is a business dedicated to deep healing and self-discovery. Meghan is a breathwork guide and transformation coach who helps high performers break free from conditioning and lead with authenticity. And we need that more than ever right now. She leverages her background in breathwork, nervous system regulation, somatics, and executive leadership coaching to help people unlock the wisdom within them and reach their highest potential. She believes that our purpose in life is to come into wholeness with exactly who we are and share the unique gift of our true essence with the world. She's honored to support your journey home. Welcome to the show, Meghan.
Pamela, thank you so much for having me. It is such an honor to be here with you today.
Are you kidding me? This is my absolute pleasure. And I'm so excited for all the listeners to get to know your story because I had the opportunity to meet you on your corporate journey. And it was very obvious from the first time I met you, there is so much to who you are and what you offer, more than looking up to you as this corporate executive, gorgeous, smart, highly capable, high performing woman, but depths to you. So I really want the audience to get to know you better. Tell us about your backstory, who you are, and what led you to start Frequency.
Yeah. Oh, and thank you so much for those kind words. It feels kismet to be here in this space with you. Oh gosh. And actually what first comes to mind, Pamela, is the title of your podcast, Over the Should, resonates so much because for most of my life, I have been ruled and dominated by the word should. My background is kind of your classic overachiever perfectionist type. I grew up following all of the rules, getting the grades, and really believing that I was what I did. I was my achievements. And that led me on the outside to a lot of success. So if you just kind of looked from the outside and you followed the path, I was like, oh, look, she's doing really well. You know, she's getting great grades. She's going to a great college. She's getting a great job. And once I was at the job, I was, performing really well and getting promotions and rising through the ranks. But if you kind of had the internal experience that I was having, it was a very different story. And I was constantly anxious, constantly stressed. I was not sleeping. I hated my body. I was ruled by perfectionism, criticism, and control. Like if you were to just drop yourself in my inner world, was a very mean place. It was, why are you like that? You shouldn't do that. Don't eat that. Don't touch that. You better get to the office now. Don't stop. You can't take a break. And it was relentless. And Pamela, I kind of just thought that's how it was. I really thought okay, this is just how I am. This is what it means to be successful. And so as my life was progressing in a way that, again, looked good from the outside, and I just thought, okay, this must be it. But I was still kind of feeling empty and numb on the inside. And eventually I had this experience that completely changed the trajectory of my life. And it was this thing called breathwork. And what happened, it's kind of crazy if you've never been to a breathwork experience before. A friend of mine dragged me along. You kind of lay down on the floor. I had no idea what to expect. And, we did this deep rhythmic breathing. And at the end, I sat up and I was like, what in the F just happened? And for the very first time in my life, Pamela, I felt connected to me, not connected to the story of me, the image of me, what I thought other people wanted from me, but my heart, my true, authentic heart. And it was a huge emotional release. And it really started to chart this other path for me. And from that moment, it became this deep unraveling. I became hooked on breathwork, and I really started to dig into, okay, whoa, what is really underneath all of these identities and these beliefs and these layers that I've, accumulated throughout my life, and what's underneath, what's here. And through a long journey, which I will not take everyone through right now, I've really gotten to find me. And that has been the most profound gift of my entire life. I've gotten in touch with my intuition, my emotions, my authenticity. And I think the best part about this, and the thing that I'm so passionate about, is none of those external things like the success, the achievement, none of that has suffered at all. In fact, that has gotten deeper and richer the more that I have gotten to know who I am and gotten in touch with who I am. And so now I'm so passionate about sharing the tools and the perspective that's really helped me find me with other people like me, because I live in a way now free from anxiety, free from control, free from those really mean voices that used to rule me. And I want everyone to have that liberation that I've been able to cultivate for myself. I'm so grateful.
That's such an important story. And I feel like it's so relatable to so many women, especially the ones who listen to this podcast who connect themselves to being high achieving, ambitious women. I know it's very similar to mine, where it was just this relentless pursuit of what I thought was excellence. And really, all of it, it was just a shield. It was to cover my insecurity and how I felt about myself. And it's so funny what you say about on the outside. It looks good. It looks like you have it all together. I used to think that was praise when would say, "How do you do it all? How do you have it all together?" I, I didn't on the inside. I never felt like I was enough. And when you saw me at my thinnest, in my cutest outfits, just taking on a corporate conference room, I was probably my most insecure, struggling with food and eating or not eating, and having all of these internal battles and dialogues of, you are not good enough. Somebody's going to find out you don't belong in this room. Just to your point, hurtful and mean on repeat in my head. And that's part of, as I was deconditioning that, that's part of why it was really important to me to connect with other women. Now, in full transparency, I don't know that I've just absolutely connected to the core of who I am and the heart of who I am. And I would love to know more about that. At the end of the breathwork, you felt like you were connected to you. What does that mean? And what does that feel like? And how did it shape you?
Oh, Pamela, I resonate with so much of your story and so much of what you just shared. And the one thing I'll say on that is, yeah, I think there's this sense too, when we receive those compliments also, it almost like self-perpetuates. It's like we get the approval or we get the validation, and it almost becomes fuel.
Yes.
It's like, oh, okay, keep doing that thing, keep doing that because it feels good. And so really, I think if I was to sum up, like, the biggest transformation I've had is the reorientation from my fuel being external to my fuel being internal. And so, as you mentioned, like, what is that? What does that feel like? It is this kind of self-arising, self-driven, internal experience. And what I think is really foundational is the body and my body's role in this experience of me. And I'll just tell you, like, it's funny, before kind of this journey, I was probably the last person that you would ever imagine saying something like this. Like, I would have told you, like, I am not an emotional person. I live 100% in my mind. Like, showing emotion is weak. Like, all of those things. I was not at all a feely person at all. And that's, again, conditioning. That's all of the things that we learn in the society that we live in, especially in the corporate world, right? And what I've discovered is that the immense power, the immense identity, the immense wisdom I have actually isn't up here in my mind, in my brain. It's actually here, like, in the entirety of my being. And that's what breathwork gave me. It gave me this somatic. Somatic means, for those who might be new to the term, it means body-based or of the body. It gave me this somatic felt experience, that kind of felt sense where you are experiencing it firsthand of, oh, this is me. And so once I found that kind of North Star, it became easier to see what wasn't me. Like, oh, this story, this pattern, oop, that's not me. So, okay, I can start to work with that. And so then my guiding place became to be, what does it feel like to be 100% authentic and 100% me? And I became obsessed with feeling more like that in every moment. And it's not been easy, by the way. And I still work on this. And there are still lots of times where I'm out of it. But that became my North Star.
I love that. It's so interesting to hear you say it that way. So I'm absolutely in tune with my inner wisdom. To your point, like I think that if we can start to listen to our gut, that's where the intuition comes from instead of just being clouded up here. So that part I have on check. The challenge that I would have personally, and I don't know how many other people feel this way, but it's this maybe multi-passionate would be a nice way to say it, but it's this idea of what do I want to be? Because we have 11 acres. So I could see myself just being a farm hand who,
Yeah.
sows her flowers and has her baby goats. But also I love being in the corporate experience. I love being an executive yoga teacher. I teach yoga and there's so many things. And so figuring out knowing me from a being able to remove the noise and other people's opinions and external validation that I used to seek because I thought that was love and praise, but really it's false, it's fake. It doesn't mean you have to have that already inside of you. So that part's good, but the what do I want to be when I grow up is totally uncertain. So how did you know
Hmm.
that starting frequency is what you wanted to be for the next version of your life?
Yeah. Well, I would also just offer, Pamela, if I may, like permission to be all of it. Like there might be a part of you inside who wants to be on the land and planting your garden and like, and that Pamela is here. And there's the Pamela that like puts on the killer suit and goes into the boardroom. And as a woman, like you aren't one or the other. Like you are all of it.
Mhm.
And I think there's a false narrative that like we have to be this thing or we have to be that thing. And those are just more boxes to put yourself in.
Mhm.
And so being able to look inside and notice these kind of like different textures and these different expressions and these different like pieces and these different kind of archetypes and sub personalities that live inside. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Like women are amazingly powerful. Like you get to be all of it.
Mhm.
And I think for me, in this chapter now, to kind of ground it back into, my story, in my role as a corporate executive, I was part of a leadership team who was helping to grow a growing technology company. And then we sold that company for $1.25 billion in 2022. And so I spent 2 years helping to integrate the company we sold. And then I just recently left that corporate role to really focus full time on frequency. And for me, the how I know is there's this part of me that feels so pulled to share the liberation and the authenticity I feel with others like me. And that feels like the fullest, most complete expression of who I am right now. And in the same beat, I will tell you completely honestly, Pamela, like, of course there's a part of me that feels, oh wait, but shouldn't we just stay? Shouldn't we just stay and, you know, seek money and seek security and seek approval? Like, of course that part's there. And, I've learned to work with her and love her and honor her and not tell her she has to shut up and go hide in the corner, right? And just notice that, because of course these parts of us that are conditioned, that have spent, decades and decades believing a certain thing, like they're going to be there. But to me, the heartbeat, the pulse, the true north, this pull forward is this desire to share, to be in community, and to and to just be spreading the things that have really helped me.
I love that. I want to ask you a question that's really challenging me. I'm 42, and so I did my early corporate days. I started working when I was 15, but I didn't really get into corporate till about 20. And I hustled like you. I worked ungodly hours. Even after I had kids, my schedule was absolutely bananas, trying to make sure the kids knew they were my priority, but then, turning on the laptop at 10 o'clock at night to finish up and getting up before everybody to set the day for them and to start my work before I even got into the office. Hustle was just ingrained in my DNA. I can look at that now, and I can recognize that hustle also is what set me apart and kept me feeling trapped and empty and unsettled and truly unfulfilled. And what I'm having trouble reconciling is being able to talk to younger women than me or women my age and say, it's okay to set boundaries and it's okay to say no and to dig into who you are and to show up authentically and to be comfortable with sharing your truth when I know without a doubt I didn't do any of those things. And it's because I was so focused on
Mm-hmm.
the corporate system that I moved up in my career. So I'm challenged with how do I actually challenge women to be authentic, to say no, to set boundaries, and that they can still be successful.
It's a great question. And I was exactly like this. So I will tell you where I have landed on this. All parts of our story have so much value. And I really believe that we have to go through the things that we do to learn the lessons and have the perspective. So while I look back on the version of me who was up at 5 in the morning every day, who would respond to an email if it came in at midnight and within 5 seconds, and I think I honor her. I say like, wow, like, sweet baby, thank you. Thank you for that. And, thank you for learning those lessons, going through that time, because I needed to. I wouldn't be here right now if I hadn't moved through that. And so when working with younger women who might be in that phase or having those, tendencies, I think awareness is the number one tool and key. When we can build awareness about what we're doing and where it's coming from, then there is more capacity to decide what might be right for us at a given time. I don't know that it is, if I was to go back and tell 25-year-old Meghan, like, stop doing this, I probably would be like, shut up, absolutely shut up, you don't know my life, right? Because that's where I was, and that's okay. Maybe I needed to be there. But giving me the tools at that time to at least start to build awareness around, because at that time I just thought that's all there was. That's just it. That's all there is. But to kind of open doors and to show and build awareness, I do think can help expand the perspective of women so that they can make their own choices about, how they want to live their life. Access to doing it differently is huge. Knowing there's a different way is a massive service.
That makes sense. And then figuring out how to make that built into more of the corporate culture too, that you don't have to answer an email within 5 seconds at midnight.
And that's the hard part, right? Because that starts with us. Like
Yes.
that starts at the top. And often it's easier to say to say this is how we should do it versus modeling that ourselves,
Yeah.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the lens through which you look because you have the corporate experience, but you've also you've taken off the layers that
Mm.
didn't fit you anymore, and you've put on the things that make more sense to where you want to go. I have never experienced breath work. Tell me more about breath work. What's the experience like? What should I
Oh
expect as a participant?
gosh, Pamela, it's life changing. It is the single thing that has changed my life the most profoundly. Hands down, no question. It is. So on the face of it, it's very simple. You are breathing in a rhythmic fashion to music, and there's no crazy witchcraft in there. There's no crazy like tools. You're just there with your own breath. But what you are able to access and tap into is profound. When we breathe in a certain way, what we're doing is we are really entering into an altered state of consciousness. So if you've ever been curious about psychedelics or plant medicine, but you're like, well, maybe that's a little bit much for me, breathwork is a really great way to kind of access some of, similar altered state of consciousness, but really just using your own breath. What we're doing is we're softening the part of the mind that likes to grip. So I kind of call it like this little thinker that sits right up here in between our eyebrows and controls and pulls the string and kind of runs the show all day. We're taking that thinker, and with the breath is naturally going to soften that piece of us and gently push her to the background. And when that happens, we as a being have more direct access to our intuition, our emotionality, our internal body, our memory, everything that usually that executive functioning likes to kind of tamp down. And so when we feel safe in an experience, we can access so much capacity through our bodies that's always there, but typically we are not experiencing. So this can look like, renegotiating big memories, feeling and moving through big emotion. This can feel like a direct experience with yourself that I was mentioning at the beginning. It can look like moving through really heavy things that have been standing in your way. It can look like divine bursts of creativity. I actually had the idea for frequency originally when in a breathwork session. I had like the vision drop in for it, and I was like, what is this? Okay. So just completely drop in like inspiration, releasing, heaviness, emotions. It's kind of like, when you like eat too much and you have a stomach ache, mm-hmm. and you're kind of like holding on, your body's like gripping, and you kind of have to like move it through. Crass analogy, but breath work is like the energetic, emotional version of that. When we walk around all day and we absorb things into our body and we hold on to them. Mm-hmm. And usually we just hold and we store it in our bodies. Store it. If we don't feel and we don't process the emotion, it's just held in our tissue. Mm-hmm. And so with breath work, it's like this big cathartic release of all of the things we've been gripping onto that usually we don't even realize that we're gripping. And when we move that through, there's so much more space for everything that is here, the moment. And it's completely changed my life.
How long does a breathwork session normally last?
So there's all different styles. You can think of breathwork as like a big umbrella term that can be anything from like what you do in a yoga class, mm-hmm. Where you might be just doing some gentle box breathing, mm-hmm. to, some wild things that you can do for several hours. The style of breath that I teach, we're actively breathing for around 25 to 30 minutes. And there's time in the beginning to connect and feel safe and get grounded. And then there's time on the end to rest and integrate and to land. Mm-hmm. But usually in my style, 25 to 30 minutes.
Okay. And so I know there's some people out there who are thinking this is really woo-woo, which I love the woo.
Yeah.
Or they're thinking there's not a chance on this planet I could lay on the ground and breathe for 25 minutes. So you emphasize that going within doesn't need to be boring, scary, or lonely. So how does your leadership of breath work, how does frequency make the inward journey more approachable and engaging?
Yeah, I love this question. Because I was probably exactly that person. I was like, no way in hell am I doing something like this. I think especially for people who are going fast and doing a lot, slowing down seems terrifying. Mm-hmm. And this is actually why I love breath work the most. I'm going to come back to why that is. But I completely get that because, I was a person who would never take a yoga class because I was like, yoga's too slow. You tell me to meditate, I'm like, screw you. That sounds horrible. Sitting still for 10 minutes, like awful. And so I know that because I feel that. And so I really try to bring a social aspect to to breathwork in groups when I teach in groups and helping people to feel really connected to each other and then really building a sense of safety, right? I know people are walking in the room feeling like, what the hell is this? Most of the time, at least half of a class, if I'm teaching a class, is brand new.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really try to speak to that voice in the head that maybe someone dragged you along and you're like, what's going on? And I've had all those same inner monologues. So we really break it down and we really make you feel safe. We really speak to the part of you in your mind that might be like, what the F is this? And guide that part through so you feel really safe and really secure. And what I'll say about breath work and why I find it to be such a great tool, especially for people who are going all of the time, is it is a more active experience. So, again, if you told me to meditate for 10 minutes, 5 years ago, I probably would have told you to go run away. That would have felt really terrible to me. And this is because our nervous system likes to do what is familiar. So if I'm constantly in a state of going, fight or flight, it feels more comfortable for my system to be in a state of activation than to be in a state of slowing down. Slowing down might actually feel really unsafe if it is unfamiliar, even if it is actually safe. So breathwork is an active experience. You're giving your mind a job. We are moving air and energy pretty quickly. So I find that it actually cuts through that part that might feel a little anxious sitting still. We are moving energy, it's active, there's stuff going on. And I do find it tends to be an entry point that works well for people who tend to be in motion a lot. Mm-hmm. So I'll just offer that if there's folks listening who identify with that.
Absolutely, because the sitting still can feel unsafe is definitely where I used to be as well, for a couple of reasons. One, I equated productivity with value. So sitting still felt like I wasn't valuable or contributing in my house or whatever I thought I should be doing. But also, sometimes it's scary to be alone with your thoughts, depending on where you are in the relationship with yourself. So I can see like slowing down can feel really scary to folks.
Yes, absolutely, for all the reasons you mentioned. And from a pure nervous system perspective, we will always choose what is familiar, even if it is not healthy, over what is unfamiliar, even if that unfamiliar thing is healthy. That is just how we work. We always gravitate towards what's familiar. So if you think about it, if we're used to being an object in motion, when we go still, our body goes danger, 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 danger. So we're sending these danger signals, which might feel like racing thoughts. It might feel like anxiety. It might feel like stress in the system because our body is going, this isn't safe, this isn't safe, when really it's just unfamiliar. Mm-hmm. And so I find that just naming that, just helping to educate on what's happening physiologically is really helpful. Because I'll tell you where I used to go, Pamela. I used to go, well, something's wrong with me. Shame, right? Especially as women, we go shame. Everyone says meditation works and meditation's calming. Why do I feel like it's causing me so much stress? There must be something wrong with me. Right? And so when we build a little bit more like literacy in our nervous system and what's happening in our bodies, then we understand, oh, okay, of course I'm feeling a little bit anxious. This is brand new. So maybe I'm going to just do this for 1 minute because I'm going to titrate, go little bit by little bit, teeny, tiny little bits to just slowly introduce something new to my system, to show my system, okay, this is safe, little bit by little bit by little bit.
That makes sense. Little tiny nibbles at something until you're more comfortable with it. So I think you have training on the nervous system and nervous system regulation. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you know and what you're talking to other folks about?
Yeah. And so I'm specifically, so much of breath work is working with the nervous system. And specifically, I've studied with my teacher, Veronica, who's amazing, the female nervous system. Because what is fascinating, Pamela, is most of conventional nervous system education is based on the male nervous system. Everything we read in studies, all of the studies are with the male nervous system.
I'm
Maybe
shocked.
shouldn't be surprising, but I still am surprised. So what's different with women is, male nervous system is like a flat line, always kind of the same. With women, our nervous system changes with our monthly cycle. Or if we are somewhere in our pregnancy journey or our menopause journey, wherever we are in our life stage, we have different needs based on where we are. What that means is, especially as we're doing inner work, working with ourselves, we have different capacities for where we might go in some phases of our cycle and some phases of where we are in our nervous system. We need a little bit more pleasure and connection. In other places, we can take on a little bit more activation in the body. So with me, if you're working with me, that might mean if you are in your follicular or ovulatory phase, we can use a bit of a more activating breathwork technique. Where if you are in your luteal phase, maybe we are going to use a little bit more of a down-regulating breathwork technique because we want to be supporting your natural rhythm of your cycle so that you feel more regulated and we're not treating wellness like you are in a male body, which would be same thing, which is actually going to cause you to feel more dysregulated. It's a really fascinating way to work with ourselves as women because we have different needs.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm curious too, because you've talked about the different roles and layers that you've had. Do you feel like you've been a veteran fitness instructor from what I remember. I think you were doing spin classes when I met you.
Mhm.
So you have this fitness instructor element to your life. You're a trauma-informed breathwork facilitator. You've been the corporate executive. You're a student of transformation. How do you feel like all of these diverse roles have influenced your now approach to wellness and healing? What has that brought into the practice that you
Mm.
offer?
That's such a great question. I really draw on all of these roles. They are really all me. And I leverage all of them when I'm working with an individual or with a group. I don't really believe in a one size fits all approach. I don't really believe in, hey, we're just going to use this tool and bang you over the head with it because I learned this one thing. Because I haven't ever seen that that's really how we heal or we come into wholeness. We are these diverse, multifaceted beings,
Mhm.
and we have all these different parts of us, and we're all searching for wholeness and authenticity. And I have different experiences and different tools to bring forward, but really it's about the individual and the group, and being responsive to the moment and being responsive to the individual and where we're going. And I actually I actually have a bone to pick with a lot of like one size fits all approaches because I actually think that they just create challenges in the wellness space because we tend to then think, well, what's wrong with me? This thing didn't work for me. And that's really just not how we're so diverse. We're so multifaceted. That's not really how we as humans are, right? We get inside, we build awareness of what's happening in our inner world. We learn to love all parts of us, and that's hard. That takes work. And then we learn to work with the pieces of us that are arising, and we work to build capacity in our systems. And in that, we step into more wholeness and authenticity and start to externally reflect the life that we feel on the inside. And that's a really cool thing that happens. When we start to do the inner work,
Mhm.
the external world will shift. It's not the other way. It's not change the external things and then feel better inside.
Mm.
We work on the inside, come into wholeness here, the external world will shift. It's pretty crazy.
I Yes, I totally agree with you. I love that approach. I know it's not one size fits all, but I'm curious if you were talking to a bunch of your friends, And they're also these high performing, high achieving, looking to climb the ladder or take a different step in life women. And they said, I am just full of anxiety and I've got a case of the Sunday scaries and Monday morning. I don't want to take my head out from under the covers.
Mhm.
What would you tell them to start doing?
Yeah, yeah. First, we learn to build awareness. So, building awareness of the thoughts. If
Mhm.
they don't yet have a practice to observe the thoughts instead of being identified with the thoughts, we'd want to start there. So, noticing, so once we can observe the thoughts that are coming in, then we want to try to question where the thoughts come from.
Mhm.
So, is this thought mine? Is this thought society's? Is this conditioning? So
Mhm.
we can start to look at that. We would want to start building some body capacity and some body awareness. So we want to start in a small, titrated way, introducing some literacy and awareness of how these thoughts might feel in the body. So it's not just a thought that I'm thinking, but how does this manifest in the body? And with that awareness, we want to try to open up some space. So we are not identified with the thing, but there's some space to play in. And that we do that work through the body. And once we're there, once we have a little bit of space, we can watch the thought. We know where it might be coming from, and we're in our bodies. Then there's a lot of shifting and moving that can happen from here. Then we can start to move the things. We can start to move and work with the things, and we can start to touch into what might be underneath these thoughts, which is where the really fun stuff happens. Because this is where we might find some desires. This is where we might find some firepower. This is where we might find some intuition, and we can start to move and work with that.
I love that. Tell me more about your day. So you've done all of this training and learning and connection to yourself. So if I wanted to know more about wholeness and wellness as you represent it, what does your day look like?
Yeah. Well, it's different now, Pamela, because I'm not getting on a million Zoom calls. So I'm so grateful for that. I like to start my mornings slowly. I like to go outside. I just started a practice of putting my feet in the earth, which is a little bit suspect. I live in Washington, D.C., so I'm out here in like dog parks where there's probably nefarious things on the ground, and I'm just doing it anyway because it feels so good and it helps me get connected. But I really try to spend the morning off of technology, outside with myself, just feeling connected to my own essence and my own heart. Sometimes that looks, I'm not a very rigid person, so sometimes that looks like a meditation practice. Sometimes that looks like some just like shaking and dancing around my apartment. Sometimes that looks like journaling, but I really try to be guided by my inside. What would feel good to me today and letting that move me.
Mm.
Then I'm working, I'm creating, I'm moving my body, I'm exercising, I'm trying to get some time with friends. Um, and yeah, I think that's, but I think the biggest thing I'll say is I really used to live in a very regimented fashion.
Mhm.
So I'm doing this workout every day at this time. I'm eating this thing at every day at this time. I am doing this practice every day at this time. And that just doesn't make me feel good.
Mm.
So it's really about what would feel good to me today.
I think that's really important to let other people hear that, because I know you wake up early, you get in your exercise routine, and you have to do this, and I am very regimented, and some of that's dictated because I've got kids and we have
Of
certain things
course.
to do and times we have to be done. But being able to give yourself permission to be flexible with how you show up for yourself, to make sure you're creating space to slow down and to be quiet, to be
Mm,
intentional about body movement, but to allow it to be more natural instead of punishment and restrictive. And if you miss an exercise routine in the morning or you eat something you didn't want to
mhm.
eat or whatever, instead of beating yourself up, let it go. There's more time in the day to take a walk if you want to, or maybe this is just a day where the priorities were different, and that's okay.
Yeah, and I'll speak to this, Pamela, because I really relate. There was a time in my life where movement was punishment, and it was exactly that. I was so proud of myself for a long time that I had never missed a 6 a.m. workout for years.
Mhm.
I was like, no matter how bad I feel, no matter how poorly I slept, like I'm making it to the 6 a.m. workout. And that was a badge of pride. I'll also tell you during this time, my body was inflamed. I was carrying extra weight, and I didn't realize it until after, but these workouts were coming from this energetic place of lack, coming from this energetic place of not enough of punishment.
Mhm.
And I really believed like if I let this go, if I slipped once, everything would fall apart. The whole house of cards would fall apart.
Yes.
And and as I have loosened that grip and started to ask myself, okay, what would feel good to me? I feel better. And externally, I actually see better results too, because it's coming from this place of like, oh, I love myself. This
Mhm.
is something I'm doing that's nice for myself.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. So, collecting all the wisdom that you have, what is one thing you would tell young Megan?
It's safe to trust yourself.
Very good one. Being a woman and feeling safe to trust your intuition and your decisions can be really challenging because we're often told not to, or it's subtly. I don't think it's intentional by most of our environment and family and what have you, but just go hug Uncle Timmy. It's okay, even if you don't want to. But we're
Yeah,
often told not to trust what our inner voice is telling us, but just do the good girl behavior. So being able to be safe with your intuition and your decisions and your inner knowing would be a huge gift to give young Megan.
absolutely. And I'll just add one more thing there. It's from a conditioning perspective too, we're often taught that our subliminally that our bodies are not safe.
Mhm.
This might be because of something that's happened to us when we were younger. This might be because we've just been messaged that our bodies are not for us, they're for someone else. This might be because, we've just been told that our bodies are not enough. So we see our bodies as a thing,
Mhm.
and then we see our bodies as not safe. And so to trust wisdom that arises not from our head but from deeper within us, that is radical because it requires descending and trusting our bodies
Mhm.
that we've been told for most of our lives like are dirty or not enough or too big, too small. And that's a profound claiming.
Mhm. And I love that you said descending because it's a reframe for me, descending into a place of trust versus retreating into a place of
Mm.
lack or not safe. So
Mm.
take like owning and claiming the descension into a place of trust is a complete reframe on how I saw what was happening when I was younger. Because it was definitely a retreating, being scared to make anybody upset. So I just went inward.
Mm.
Very interesting.
Mm.
Okay. I think that anybody who hears this is going to want to know more about you and how to work with you. So, how do we work with you, Megan?
Well, I host regular breathwork groups once a month that are virtual, which is a great way to pop in if anything about breathwork inspired you. These are always a great group to come be a part of. And Pamela, what I'm really, really excited about is here in the spring, I am launching a program for high achievers that are seeking inner fulfillment.
Mm.
So this is going to be a 6-week group program. I'm keeping it really small, really intimate. And it's going to be a journey into a lot of what we just spoke about, in a journey into unpacking limiting narratives and beliefs, the reasons that maybe, success isn't feeling like all it should be, and really claiming your authentic path, feeling confident and clear, stepping into a life that's meaningful for you. And there is a wait list for this. It's not fully launched just yet, but there is a wait list for this if you'd like to learn more. I would love, love, love to hear from you.
The 6 week program, is it also virtual or is it in person in DC?
It will be virtual.
Amazing. Okay, so
Yeah.
exciting. Oh my goodness. Well, I know that I'm going to put the link to the wait list on the show notes, but you will see my name pop up on your wait list for
Amazing.
sure.
Amazing.
Oh, okay. The last question I love to ask guests is, what's your favorite quote these days?
Mm. My favorite quote is, "As you start to walk on the way appears." It's by Rumi.
Oh, that's beautiful. Megan, is there anything else you want to close out with?
No, Pamela, this has been beautiful. This has been amazing to chat with you. I would just say to anyone who is listening to this, um, thank you for listening, and just you can trust yourself. It's safe to trust yourself. Thank you, Pamela.